Alright, I'm on the line with Tej Dosa, and he's an online entrepreneur, very smart young guy who I've interacted with on Twitter. I'm excited to have him on today. And before we get started, Tej, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about how old you are, what you do, what businesses you run, and perhaps how long you've been doing those.
Sure. So first and foremost, just thanks for having me on the podcast, James. You're one of the original OGs that actually inspired me to get on Twitter, so I really appreciate this podcast. What's funny is you were actually my second follower as well, and this is my first podcast, so I'm hoping to make it a good one for you. So to introduce myself, right now I'm 24 years old. I've been in this game, in this online marketing game, this Wi-Fi money type of game, since I was 12 to 13 years of age. And I think the best way for me to introduce myself is just to give you guys a quick rundown of my story, where I come from, what I'm about, the whole nine. So what had originally happened was, the reason I got into the online marketing game was around 12, 13 years of age. Summer vacation happened, like it always does, and instead of enjoying a brilliant, nice summer vacation with my friends outside, my parents woke me up on day one and they said, hey, you gotta go to the farm and pick blueberries. And it was like hot as hell. I'm over here in Vancouver, Canada, and the winters are cold, but not too cold, but the summers get hot, at least by our standards. And so the first day I went to this farm, I hated it. I had to work 12 to 14 hours a day, and at the end of the day, I would only be making about $50, which was shit. Like if you do the math on that, like the hourly rate is like insane, ridiculously low. And then I did that the entire summer, dreaded it, and then finally school rolled back around in September, and it was the most excited I've ever been to go back to school. However, the next summer vacation, my parents hit me with the same plan of going back to the farm, and after the first day, I kind of broke down, came home crying. I was about 13 years of age, and I basically told them that, hey, like I don't want to do this, I can't do it. It's like quite miserable, but I didn't have any other source of income. But around the same time, I had stumbled across a lot of self-help books. So I was like during that phase of around 12, 13, I was like literally brainwashing myself with a bunch of self-help material. And it started influencing my mindset in a major way, where I began to realize that, hey, like if you want to make money, then you kind of have to take risks and strike out on your own instead of going after the safe route. So that day, I discovered like you can make money online as well. It was still like a pipe dream. It didn't seem real to me. But I remember going up to my mom and telling her, hey, I make $50 a day picking blueberries. If I can make that much or more online, can I not go to the farm? And she agreed. And then that next day I took off from going to the farm. I hopped online. The first thing I typed in Google was some dumb shit, like how to make money online. I don't know what I found. It was like some surveys or some like ad sites where you just click ads and get paid. And that first day I made 27 cents. However, it was the greatest 25 fucking cents I ever made in my life, because it flipped that switch in my brain and it told me that, hey, this making money thing online is real and it's possible. So from then on, I was addicted and I jumped fully into it. I started a bunch of shit, half seriously, half not. Any business that I could start with $0, I would start because I didn't have any money at the time. And I did a bunch of things. I was managing social media for up-and-coming rappers when Facebook was first starting to pop. I dabbled in affiliate marketing, niche sites, even e-com way back in the day. However, the thing was I kept on failing. And one day I took a step back and I realized, I was like, hey man, like I've been doing all these things. Like I was making money, but it wasn't like serious money where it would provide a full-time income. And I was still super young. However, I had this realization that the reason I kept failing was because I had approached this entire online business thing backwards. And instead of learning the skill set that I needed, I was just going from business venture, business model to business model, hoping the business model would make me successful and make me money. But really it was myself who was going to make me successful and the skill sets I had. And at the time I didn't have any skill sets. So I realized the number one skill set that I needed was actually marketing. And the reason I kept failing was because I was horrible at marketing and sales. I was super shy, super introverted. And yeah, so after I had that realization, I went down the rabbit hole. I think the first thing I discovered was Gary Halbert, one of his letters. I have no idea how I stumbled across those, but that took me down the rabbit hole, and I got super serious about marketing and sales, and I started using what I was learning, and I started applying those to my own ventures. I started up a little info product business, and then grew that to 6 figures with what I had learned and the skills that I had built, and that went super well. From there on, that kind of transitioned into clients started reaching out to me. They were seeing what I was doing, and they were wondering if I could help them. From then on is when I kind of became a operator as well, helping out clients. And from then on, I had this entire business model basically I set up. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I had a breakdown in the sense that the business model I was building wasn't sustainable for the long run, so I had to completely shut that down and reassemble everything, and that's what transitioned into a digital agency. And right now what I do is, I like to think of it as a marketing machine. I'll describe it later on, but it's a digital agency is how I make my majority of my money, and then the profits I've been getting from those, I've started to reinvest into real estate development and also e-commerce. So the main 3 things that I do right now is marketing machine / digital agency, real estate, and e-commerce. E-commerce and real estate, well, e-commerce in particular, I just started up a few months ago. I was kind of inspired by all you guys online on Twitter, and real estate's been about like 2 years, I think now. But for the digital agency, I've been going strong for about 4 years. However, I had that entire time as a operator before that too, which kind of set the foundation for everything.
All right, fantastic. And we're going to talk about each of those business models that you do later on.
Right.
But first, I just want to talk about some general stuff, some general questions I have for you. I saw a tweet you put out about lifestyle businesses and how that's not what you want for yourself. Now, as someone who's currently struggling to figure out what I want for myself, I found that an interesting tweet. So I'd like you to perhaps clarify what exactly your vision is and why you want something bigger than just a lifestyle business.
Right. So the way I think of it is, I think the main appeal of a lifestyle business is, like, at least what you see on Instagram or like social media, which is obviously half the picture, but I think the main appeal for people is freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And personally, I think because I've never, quote unquote, had to work a real job or punch the clock at a 9 to 5, I think similarly to you, I've always had freedom. Like since 12 years old, 12, 13 years old, I've been doing what I want, I've been making money how I wanted. And the lifestyle business thing, like make a bunch of money and then you go retire on a fucking beach and sip pina coladas all day. At first it inspired me because I originally stumbled across this model through the 4-Hour Work Week, which I know you've been reading as well. And that was what initially triggered me for this lifestyle business. But I actually ended up, with that info product business I talked about earlier, I ended up making a good solid chunk of change. And then from there I kind of fucked off and took a little break. And then literally on the first day, first week, first day, whatever it was, I kind of sat back. I was like, yo, I don't want to be on this fucking beach. I don't want to be like partying nonstop. It was fun. However, I get my real joy from creating and building shit, and I just want to make shit happen on the highest level. And I think a lifestyle business doesn't allow me to do that, because in order for me to make my goals and visions come to reality, I actually need to hire out employees and build out a real solid fucking team that we can use to really make some major shit happen in this world. So my main goal, my main vision, the reason I even got into digital agencies and the service business, even though it's a bunch of eating shit, like client services is a pain in the ass some days, but the reason I got into it was because I'm actually, I like to think of it as a private equity / marketing machine, because my ultimate goal is to basically build out an entire fully functional marketing machine, which allows you to take any business from zero to fucking hero in a short period of time. So I've been doing that, and for the last 4 years I've been hiring out those different pieces, the components that I need to make that happen. And now I'm at the point where I can start creating my own ventures and feeding it through the marketing machine, because we have built a pretty sustainable model that's applicable to a variety of different industries. And so the goal is to basically buy up companies and run it through this machine and then flip them, grow them first, and then flip them for a gain. And the lifestyle business thing doesn't really appeal to me, in the sense that I know a lot of people think lifestyle businesses aren't real businesses, but I don't necessarily agree with that either, because I know some guys that are lifestyle business guys that make $100,000 a month, and they're fucking killing it, and they also have a great quality of life. But me personally, I love the hustle, I love the action, and I don't really see myself on a beach somewhere and missing out on these glory years, because I think 20s and 30s are your time to really shine and make a dent in the universe. So I don't want to be on a beach somewhere and wasting my potential, whereas I could be using it to make some major shit happen.
You talked about employees there, hiring employees and building a team around this whole thing. Can you talk a little bit about your current situation, how many employees you have, whether that's virtual or in a physical office?
Right. So I touched upon earlier regarding that the way I originally was building out this agency was entirely wrong, and I'll just get a little bit into that because it will give you some context. So what I was originally doing was I was servicing all the clients myself, because I think in the early days, like some people call it bootstrapping, there's really no cost for service businesses. However, I was servicing all the clients myself, and I had clients in America, I had clients in Canada, I had clients in Asia, and I was running around all day just hustling my face off. And I kept that up for about a year, and one day I kind of had this breakdown in the sense that I'm only one person and I only have 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day, and I can't really bring to life the things, the visions, the dreams, the goals that I want to bring to life just running things myself. So even though at that time I was working personally with all my clients and taking care of all their marketing needs, I kind of took a step back from that and told everybody, like, hey, like, I'm not going to be the guy actually performing and conducting and playing out the services. Instead, I'm going to do a complete 360 and actually start building out a real agency with real people and real employees, and leverage their skill set, their time, and their abilities to grow this company. And instead, I myself was just going to focus on the sales and marketing side of things. And then some clients appreciated me telling them that. Some clients had bought me in a sense because I was conducting the services for them, and they were happy with that, and they didn't want to go with some unknowns, so I lost a bunch of clients that way. However, that was about 4 years ago, and I started building it up back up the right way, and now got a small handful of employees / independent contractors. Everything is virtual right now, but I don't really like virtual employees, because even though the people that we have are quite great, I think the reason I personally don't like virtual employees is because you can't really build out a culture, and in order for me to do what I want to do, I really need a culture, and like to legit build out a fucking cult of people that are straight up killers that can get shit done. And so what I've been actually trying to do is transition from the virtual world into a physical office space. This last week I messaged a bunch of realtors, and I'm scouting out some office space here in Vancouver, and I'm trying to make the switch into the physical world. I'll still have virtual employees, but in the next 6 months I plan on going on a hiring spree and hiring out a lot of local talent and taking the agency to the next level.
Fantastic. That's very exciting to hear. And can you talk a little bit about what kind of employees you have? So, I mean, do you have like one Facebook ads guy? Do you have one copywriter? Or do you have more sort of all-rounders and you sort it by category of clients or whatever?
Right. Yeah, so the way originally it was mostly copywriters, because the service I was providing up front was just copy mostly. But then from then on, I kind of had that vision that I talked about earlier regarding building out a fully functioning marketing machine. And in order to do that, you need to have a bunch of different pieces. You need to have a guy, you need to have some high-level strategy people, you need to have some guy that knows funnels real well, paid traffic, copy, design, developers, all that. So initially started out with a bunch of copywriters, but now, even like in the next 6 months, I have like those pools that I just talked about, like paid traffic, funnels guys. I need to get more people involved in those areas as well. So yeah, the main employees that run the show, they're involved in copy, Facebook, paid traffic, whether it was Google or Facebook, and just high-level funnels. I think those are the three main areas that allow for the most growth when we take on new clients. So that's how I categorize their employees.
Have you always worked on your own, or have you ever worked with partners?
So the bulk of everything I did was on my own. But however, when I was starting up the agency or whatnot, my original plan wasn't what I was actually doing right now. My original plan was to talk to businesses in Asia who wanted to expand to the North American market without relying on middlemen. And my original plan was just to cut out all the middlemen in the US and go directly to the Asian businessman and help him expand and transition his products and services to the North American market. So the value prop that we had was, basically, like Asian businesses, when they try expanding to the North American market, usually their marketing is fucking trash. And it doesn't really resonate with the US market because, to no fault of their own, it's just a different culture. And the original vision I had was to help those guys transition over to the North American market. In order to do that, I actually reached out to this guy that I knew through my blog who's located in Singapore, and he was a consultant. He was self-employed, but he was a consultant, and he was doing quite well for himself, and he had a lot of connections over in Asia. So I had that partnership initially, but that didn't really work out too well because I think he was already making a comfortable living with what he was already doing, and it was still the early days of this agency model, and in the early days of anything, you gotta eat a lot of shit. So that didn't really work out too well, but that was one partner I had. And now that e-commerce project that I'm working on, I'm actually working on it with my girlfriend, and it's been going super well, I think, because the boundaries are clearer. And but the majority of what I've been doing since 12, 13, I've been doing entirely on my own because I think, I don't know, it's just the way it ended up happening. I'm not taking place.
You talked earlier about copywriting and about how that's how you got into the service business. Can you talk a little bit about how you learned copywriting and how others can learn it too?
Sure. So the reason I even got into copywriting in the first place was because I was actually a pretty big pussy in the sense that I actually wanted to learn sales, and I actually wanted to do door-to-door and cold calling because, since I was a little kid, I've always admired business people, and I've always asked them literally any and every question, any business person that was 40, 50, 60, whatever. I just wanted to know what advice they had, and I would just eat their head off just talking. And then the number one skill set they kept recommending over and over and over and over again was sales. And they kept telling me go do door-to-door for a year, go fucking cold call some people. But I was scared. I was super introverted, and I didn't want to do that, but I also recognized the value in learning salesmanship. And then the way I stumbled across copywriting was when I realized that, hey, copywriting is just sales in print, and that was kind of my escape route. I could take that route and learn sales and marketing without actually having to go door to door and do cold calling. But it's funny because once I started learning copywriting and becoming good at it, I actually had to do a lot of those sales tactics that I talked about earlier, cold calling especially. And so I actually learned this backwards. I recommend people learn sales first because I think it transitions super well to copywriting, but I was kind of scared to go that route because I feared rejection. I feared going up to strangers. I feared all that. But after I learned copywriting, sales kind of became a lot more naturally to me, and then I learned it backwards. But the way I learned copywriting was, I'm a believer in just picking out 1 to 2 main people that you want to be like or that inspire you and studying their shit out inside out. And then the copywriter that I picked out was Gary Halbert. So I initially got exposed to the Gary Halbert letters, and I read all of them at least twice. They were legit crack cocaine to my mind. Awesome. And so what he recommended was, I think he has that 30-day challenge, but I didn't do that. Instead, I mostly just studied Gary inside out myself. I would analyze all his direct response letters, whether it was his famous $1 bill ad or his beauty product ads. There's a bunch of them up on Swipe.co, I know. And then even just analyzing the Gary Halbert letters themselves, they helped me a lot. And that's how I learned copywriting. I learned the basic principles through those letters, and then I would just try to apply it to a bunch of different stuff I saw online. And I think it's important when you're learning copywriting to have some sort of feedback loop. So what I would do is just take shit I had in the house and try selling it with my copywriting skills through Craigslist, just to see what would generate traction. And I wasn't even going for that one response like, hey, I'll buy it, because he would probably have bought it anyways, whether it was for my copy or not. I was looking to get responses of people saying, yo, like, this is a killer fucking Craigslist ad. Like, I never seen shit like this on Craigslist before. And that's what I was going for. And once I started getting a lot of those messages, I started realizing that, hey, I'm kind of onto something here. And yeah, what's also funny is, in terms of copywriting, I'm an advocate of keeping journals as well. So from a super early age, like throughout my teenage years, I've kept journals on and off. And what's funny is I was actually flipping through a few days ago, and it's strange because everything I wrote down as like a super young kid, I'm kind of doing now. And I remember writing down like learn copywriting, learn sales, learn marketing, and I would circle it, underline it, and it was like that constant pattern throughout my journals. But I never made that conscious realization until I was looking back on it now. And it's crazy because like even like the agency model, like buying and flipping companies or real estate or e-commerce, like all those plans were written down super long ago, but I just couldn't see it. But now going back, kind of all the dots connect, and it's been super cool to see that.
Can you just quickly tell the story, and I saw this on your Twitter, of the outreach to CEOs that you did with the $100 bill, because this is a brilliant story.
Sure. Yeah, so the reason I did this was because I tried all the other avenues, such as reaching out via cold emails or even like PPC, and they work super well. But I needed to make a major impression with CEOs. So instead of taking $1,000 and dumping it into Facebook and getting a few leads and doing it that way, I thought that wouldn't make as much of an impression on a CEO as if I just took out $1,000 from the bank and wrote a killer direct response letter, stapled a $100 bill to each letter, and sent it out using priority mail to the offices of these CEOs with the killer call to action, saying something like, hey, like I had a tracking on the letter, so it just says something like, hey, you have 24 hours to give me a call back, otherwise I'll be using my skill set and my energies to grow the business of your competitor, and I'll list the competitor's name. And the reason the letters worked was they were super personalized. They positioned me as high value. I had quite a bit of results I generated through copywriting for my own stuff at this time, so I positioned myself quite well. And then going the direct response way and sending out actual letters ended up converting clients a lot better than, say, cold email or Facebook would have done. And I ended up getting quite a few responses, and that was what kind of kickstarted everything.
So we've sort of transitioned to talking about the digital agency now. You've already kind of explained the business model, but can you talk a little bit about the type of clients you have and what the service is that you provide?
So the type of clients that we have range in terms of their niche and what vertical they're in. And they're all online clients, meaning they all have an online business. So the clients range from software companies to info product companies to even like individuals with their own personal brands. And a few of the industries that we're in are real estate, dating, making money online, weight loss. It's like the big four. And also other verticals such as photography is a big one. Photography, a lot of clients are in the affiliate marketing in the teaching world. Other clients are in e-commerce. That's a lot of clients in e-commerce. Some are doing drop shipping, but majority are not in drop shipping. They manufacture their own products. So the clients tend to range. And in terms of the services we provide, I like to think of it in the sense that at the end of the day, the services that we provide are selling two things, and those two things are profit and attention. So what I mean by that is literally like any business and any person that wants to build a personal brand or wants to make some of this internet money is a potential client of ours, because at the end of the day, people will always want profit and they will always want attention. So the way we go about delivering on that promise is the agency covers everything from crafting funnels to paid traffic to email marketing and everything in between. And yeah, so we basically take care of everything you need to go from zero to making a killing online.
And how do you get these clients?
So initially, the way I would get these clients was through direct mail, cold email, and then from then on, the money. And the reason I like service businesses in general is because of the recurring revenue each month. If you do a good job with your initial clients, like you really don't need that many clients to make a killing with service businesses. However, what ended up happening for us was we had a handful of small clients up front and provided a lot of good services to them, and they stuck with us. Majority of them have still stuck with us to this day, and the business now is just generated through referrals mostly.
Okay. And what's the average value of a client to you?
The average value of a client is about 5 to 6 figures.
Over how many months?
So, in terms of, it would probably be like over 14 to 15 months, it would hit the 6 figures range, and then within the first few months, it would hit the 5-figure range.
Okay.
In the first month.
So high-end services.
Right.
All right. I'm actually working with a company like that. I've just started working. But it sounds like they're a little bit on the cheaper range compared to you. I can tell you actually what they charge. They charge 2,500 up front and 1,500 a month for the ongoing maintenance of the Facebook ads. That includes building the funnels and all that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's usually like the price point. Like I know like one of my friends who also does something of the sort, but he just does email marketing for e-commerce clients, and then he says it publicly, so I'll say it here too. But his fees is he charges 3,000 plus 5% of sales, and he's been killing it with that as well.
It's interesting. So you're not doing any local clients. You're not doing the Tai Lopez stuff of calling up local businesses.
No, I have 0 local clients. The closest client to me, I'm in Vancouver. The closest client to me is in Toronto. Yeah, Toronto.
That's interesting because a lot of people try to paint the local businesses, like the car repair shops and places like that, as this brilliant market because they're not aware of how to do this stuff themselves.
Right. But for myself, yeah, I agree with that. That's a good point. But for myself, I like going where the money is. So if a client is already making millions online and they already have a funnel, then it's much easier for me to come in and make a couple of tweaks and grow that company, as opposed to taking a new guy from the Sally's barbershop or whatever and trying to generate some leads for her, which would work super well. But I think if you just want to make, like, if you have the skill set and you know marketing and you know sales and you know direct response, then I think you should go after the biggest clients you can get and charge a premium price, as long as you can deliver and give the client what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes complete sense what you're doing. can we talk a little bit about the real estate development next? First of all, just for those of us who are completely unaware of the market, what does development mean? Are you building houses? Are you improving houses? Or what exactly does that entail?
Yeah, so development, like the definition would be taking a piece of land and then constructing property on it and then selling it. But I tend to I'm just getting into that land business now. What I've been doing primarily is just purchasing residential property and then just renting it out on a monthly basis. So the monthly rent usually ends up covering the mortgage with a little bit left over that goes to, it's just extra cash flow. And then whenever the market takes off, just selling the houses.
So you
a long-term goal for that would be to get into commercial real estate and also multifamily, because that's where the biggest bang for your buck is. It's also where the majority of the risk is as well. But in order to make the big bucks, you have to take on some big risks. So in terms of that, that's the ultimate goal. And actually wanted to get into that early on. Like, real estate has always been a strong passion, but I never had the capital up front until I created this marketing machine and started spitting out profits, and I've just been using that money to funnel into real estate. So it's not exactly a business as of yet. It's more so just investments and just a secondary source of income.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind me asking, how many properties do you have now?
So the first property I got about 2 years ago, and that was a residential property. And from then on, kind of started looking into the apartment games and also other residential properties. So right now I have about 3 properties and just trying to locate, get into the apartment game as well with my brother.
Nice. And how much capital is really required to sort of get started with this?
Yeah, so for real estate, I know like a lot of people say like you can get in with like no money down or without taking on debt or whatever, and I think you can do that. Like, honestly, I haven't really researched too much into that. I'm not like an expert in real estate by any stretch of the imagination. All I've been doing is basically just taking the money, a little bit of money I made, and putting it into residential properties. The first property that I personally purchased, it was selling for $899, and it required a 20 to 25% down payment, which came out to be $225. And then that one ended up it would make $2,000 per month in rental income. The mortgage on that, the mortgage monthly payment was about $1,000, so I had $1,000 left over each month, and still own that one. So when the market's been doing well, but I kind of bought it. I bought it when the market was also doing well, so I'm kind of waiting for a recession to hit, and then the price is going to dip down again, and ended up buying a few more properties, and then once the market spikes up again, probably sell that one and see a gain on it. But right now it's kicking in, like that first property is kicking in $1,000 cash flow every month. So in terms of how much capital is required, I think it depends on how you want to enter the real estate game. There's a bunch of ways to do it. Me personally, I just use the money that I earned to put into properties and just hold for the long term. And that requires some capital. But I think you can do it without much capital. But I'm not experienced in that at all.
What you're doing sounds exactly like something I'm interested in, which is just, what do I do with this money I make online? And from the minimal amount of research I've done, it seemed to me that real estate doesn't promise too great returns compared to just throwing it into an ETF index fund and getting your 8% average returns on stocks for no work. So what are sort of the returns on your real estate investments, or what returns do you expect based on your calculations over a decade, 2 decades, whatever?
Right. I think, yeah, like getting into reading all those articles myself, and I think they're true overall in the sense that, yeah, like other things would get you higher returns. But I think it comes down to the market mostly. I had one client who is in the SaaS business, and they basically provide alerts regarding when you should purchase, when you should buy, when you should sell, when you should hold, the whole nine. And their software is actually pretty solid in the sense that you make a good solid chunk of change. And that kind of triggered my thinking in the sense that the market plays a much larger role in real estate instead of just the industry as a whole. So if you're in a pretty good market, I think your returns are going to be pretty solid. So I'm here in Vancouver, and the Vancouver market has been super hot. There's been a large influx of Asian buyers entering the market, and they've actually been spiking up the prices super high, which is kind of good and bad for me right now, because the good is the value of the properties that we currently own have been going up, but in terms of getting new properties acquired, it just doesn't make sense to purchase those right now. So that's been the negative side of things. But in terms of returns, I think if you invest properly and you invest in a hot market, you can see some good returns, higher than stocks also, because I think the volatility is a lot less in real estate as opposed to stocks. And yeah, so that's kind of my main goal. Honestly, like with real estate, I'm not too concerned with the returns as of now. I'm mostly just concerned about the cash flow each month, but the majority of the returns will be made when I sell. And since I haven't really sold anything yet of the properties that I own, I haven't actually have a real number to tell you in terms of the percentage. But I think it all depends on you. If you can hold for a long amount of time, and if the market increases, then you can basically make solid fucking returns.
I mean, even just based on the cash flow, I mean, if you make 1,000 a month, part of that will go to maintenance, tax. Do you know how much of that 1,000 gross profit is left over?
Yeah. So the gross profit for that 1,000 it's actually pretty high. It's about I think we save about $600 each month.
That's not bad, yeah.
Yeah, so like 16%.
So you've got, yeah, that comes out about what I've read. So that's about 3.5% returns in terms of cash flow annually. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
7,000 on a 200k investment, which again it's okay, but it's not spectacular.
Right. Yeah.
I was all excited about this real estate and getting the cash flow, and then I looked at the numbers and I thought, well, 3.5%, it's not that much.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think the reason I'm into it personally is kind of meets I like thinking in terms of decades as opposed to years or months. And one of my long-term plays is commercial real estate. So right now, I'm not too concerned. Like, yeah, the returns aren't as great as I would want, but I don't even think about the returns too much right now. I'm mostly just, the game's entirely new to me, and I'm just trying to get my foot in the door and learn as much as I can about it, because I think down the line, once I have enough capital to enter the commercial world, or even secure investors to enter with me, this knowledge that I'm accumulating right now is going to pay off heavily down the line, because the real returns in real estate aren't in residential. The real returns are in commercial and even like multifamily when you take on greater risk. So right now it's just like eating shit face, and the real returns for me will personally pay off much down the line.
That makes a lot of sense. Perhaps something I'm overlooking, that buying a few properties now is more of an investment in yourself and gaining this experience so that you can scale that up later.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, so moving on to the next sort of business model you're involved in, e-commerce.
Uh-huh.
You don't do drop shipping, you manufacture your own products.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of generating an idea, then reaching out, finding manufacturers, getting it produced, and launching it to market?
Sure. So this is quite new. Actually, posted a tweet about this. I think the tweet said something along the lines of, I validated a simple product idea and now I'm going to start manufacturing the product and try to sell it. And then that was, I think it was just a few months ago, so yeah, so I'm super new to this game. But the reason I entered it is, when it comes to creating businesses or whatnot, I'm a huge advocate of scratching your own itch. And a piece of practical advice that I have is, every day I try to write out 10 ideas about anything. It could be any problem I'm having, or it could be like 10 products I want to create, 10 things I want to see in the world. And then initially what had happened was, I try to do this at least every day. And during one of those brainstorming sessions, I kind of stumbled across this idea for a product. So I did what anybody would do. I jumped on Google and tried to see if it was there, because I actually wanted to buy it myself, and I couldn't find it. So what I did was, I created a mock-up of this product. I used Canva to create this mock-up of this product. Then it was bootleg as fuck, but I grabbed the Shopify membership. I will put that up on a simple product page, and I started running Facebook traffic to this product page with a mock-up of this product that wasn't even in existence yet. But I just wanted to see if the idea had traction, because I thought it was super helpful. And I used my knowledge of Facebook ads to drive traffic to it. I ended up getting about 5 orders in pre-sales, and I thought that was pretty good, considering I didn't even really know how the product looked. And the product wasn't cheap either. It was, I think I had it listed for, how much was it initially? I think it was $60 US initially. And yeah, so I made about 5 sales via Facebook. From then on, I made the mistake of actually reaching out to a bunch of local suppliers that could produce this product for me, but the prices they were charging were insane. Like, that shit would have ended this e-commerce venture before it even started. The prices were so high, I couldn't even make a profit on each unit if I had done it locally. So I ended up messaging a bunch of people overseas in China, and their price points were a lot better, but the quality of the product decreased severely. So I actually ended up finding kind of a middleman, in the sense that he works with suppliers in Asia in this particular niche, and then he gets whatever you need created. And the fees are a little bit higher than it would be if you went directly to an Asian supplier. However, the quality is a lot better, and the price point is a lot lower than if I went locally. And that makes sense for me to do, at least up front, to see if this idea actually had legs. So I went that route. I ordered a bunch of product in bulk. I had this product and another product, and I ordered those 2 in bulk. And then once that finally arrived, I just went full out on Facebook. This is just in the last little bit, and the majority of my traffic source was through Facebook. Took photos, whatever, created a brand or whatnot, and started driving traffic to it. But the site itself is still like not where it needs to be. And I'm a huge advocate of entering businesses that have high barriers to entry, because I think if you're gonna enter, the reason I personally don't do dropshipping is because the barriers to entry are non-existent, in the sense that anybody can literally take what you're doing and run with it. So I think for me personally, it's not a sustainable model long term. So if I'm gonna invest my energy in any one area, I want to see payoffs not only today but down the line as well in years to come. And I think that has pros and cons because it has at times I've left a lot of money on the table which I could have made in the short term. But I think in terms of thinking long term, I'll see a lot more payoff thinking along these lines. So with that, I got it produced through that guy, through an Asian supplier, found a manufacturer that way, and have been getting it produced and just using Shopify to sell it. But I'm actually thinking of, as this picks up, going directly to Asia myself and establishing those relationships, because I have quite a few ideas in this niche that I want to create that haven't been created yet in terms of products, and I think establishing that relationship myself will pay off extremely well.
That's fascinating and ties in quite well to something I'm doing as well. Can you give us the numbers? You said you got 5 sales with the testing you did. How much did you spend on ads there?
5 sales, I think, to acquire, so each product was selling for $60. I think I was making sales by I had an ad spend like started super low, like 5, 10. I think it would take me, the profit margin on initially when it was $60, the profit was $30, and I would invest about, I think it cost me $15 to acquire a customer.
All right. And you talked about quality of the suppliers. Did you order from a bunch of different suppliers before you decided on one, or how did you decide on the right one?
Yeah, so I ordered a bunch of samples from a few local companies, and I also ordered a few samples from the Chinese suppliers, and then like the Chinese suppliers took a while to deliver, but I did like rush order or whatnot, so it came pretty quickly. And then the local suppliers, then I just compared the two at home, and yeah, the local suppliers' quality was much better, but the Chinese suppliers, the quality at first, like the actual Chinese suppliers, their quality was garbage, but what this other supplier found, the quality is actually pretty solid, and the cost is like ridiculously low compared to the local supplier. So that's how I decided on quality. I think in the future, as if I dive deeper into this venture and start making some real money with it, I would personally reinvest money to increase the quality a little more. But right now, it's definitely pretty good to go.
And can you give us an idea of how big the price difference is between Canadian and Chinese suppliers?
Sure. So my initial order, the bulk order, I was asking for, let's see, I forgot the bulk quantity itself, but I remember the local suppliers quoted me $7,000, but I got that done in China for $2,500.
Okay. That's a lot. Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, so with the local ones, like I wouldn't even be making a profit. I would be losing money on each one.
Definitely. A lot to think about there for me as I'm working on a secret project of my own. Yeah, anyway, let's talk a little bit about Twitter and why you started this personal brand, what your vision is for it, and perhaps tell us any benefits you've experienced since having it.
Sure. So my vision for my personal brand is I'm doing it for 2 main reasons. The first main reason is in order for me to build up that machine and get it to the point where I want it to be, I really need to attract the right type of talent in order for it to reach the next level. And one of the main problems I've had that I think a lot of people have when they try recruiting employees or contractors or whatever is, it's the people are out there. However, quality isn't really out there. Like it's super hard to find people that can actually do an exceptional job, because if they do an exceptional job, I find especially in like the online marketing world, most of them working for themselves. You know what I mean? And then the people that don't are just learning, or they're kind of just playing around with it. Like even like with copywriters, like a lot of people position themselves as copywriters, but all they've really done is read one or two books on copy, handwritten a few letters, and then they jump on these freelance websites and call themselves a copywriter and try charging like ridiculous prices, and then a lot of employers end up hiring these people, then they get the copy back, and it's lousy as hell. It's like full of hype, full of bullshit. It doesn't convert, it doesn't sell. And I personally had that problem myself. Like I ran into a bunch of copywriters that burned my money, which is fine. It's a learning experience. So going back to the personal brand thing, it's actually been cool because even without asking directly for it, I've started receiving quite a few DMs from actually talented people that I follow myself, who have been asking if I ever need additional copywriters or whatnot, they could jump on board and produce the work. And even though I'm transitioning into having like real employees instead of virtual, I'll still keep the virtual employees alive and well. So the reason for the personal brand is one, to attract higher quality talent, and two, is to basically get my name out there, because with this marketing machine, I actually want to enter higher and higher domains, in the sense that I want bigger and bigger clients, not just businesses, but also individuals. So I want to use this marketing machine that sells attention and profit to also launch a bunch of different careers for individuals that are in certain domains in culture, such as up-and-coming rap artists, or even in sports, or anything. And in order for me to attract those types of clients, I need to be known myself. So those are my two main reasons. One, to attract higher quality employees, and two, to build out my own profile.
We're nearing the end here, but I have to go back and ask some questions to what you just said, because it's fascinating. These people reaching out to you, have you ever hired one of them? Because I get that as well, but I'm a bit cautious to hire anyone who follows me, because people who follow me are into entrepreneurship and starting their own business. So I think they'll work for me for a bit and then get fed up quite quickly. That's my worry, at least.
I think that's a solid worry. But for me personally, like a lot of people like that reach out too, right? Like I'm sure like your DMs are full of it, but I've been receiving that on a much smaller scale. At least like every day I'll receive like 2-3 messages from people, like requests on Twitter for the DMs regarding, hey, like if you ever need copy, like, hey, I'm here, like, yo, can you like train me, can you mentor me, like that entire spiel. I was actually reading one of your emails, I think the one you sent today regarding mentorship, and I find it quite funny, because yeah, in the same sense, and I feel like in that sense, it's not really a long-term play for them. They're just going to use what they learn to do stuff for their own self, which is fine, which is what I would personally do as well.
Yeah.
I can't hate them for that. Like that's what I would do, right? But like the people that have been reaching out that have actually caught my attention are actually copywriters, in the sense that I think they like that lifestyle business idea regarding just being a solopreneur and just writing copy for clients. And I see those are usually my sweet spot in terms of the high quality employee, the guy that knows the shit but doesn't really want to build out a fully functional business for himself because he doesn't want to deal with the headaches and the pains of growing a company. I find those make for the best employees, not necessarily employees because they work when they want and they run everything on their own time, so more so like independent contractors. But I've been receiving messages from those types of people and they got me excited, and I haven't really hired out anybody yet, but in the next few months I'm planning on at least getting one new person on board that I have my eyes on, and I think he could add some super value to the team.
How do you manage these people? Do you manage everyone yourself, or do you have a middle manager?
Yeah, so I've tried using a bunch of the available tools, everything from Trello to Asana to Slack to Basecamp. And personally, for me, one area that I definitely need need to improve on is my managing and my leadership skills. Those are two things that I definitely need to hone going forward, because right now in terms of managing, not that great of a manager, to be honest with you. My policy is basically, if you got the juice and you got the value, then here's what I need done, and here's your job, and here's your role. Take care of it. You can take care of it on your own time. I don't care if it took you an hour to do or how long it takes you. You'll make the money as long as the product is good. And I'm kind of just like letting the people run the show. So I'll just send out an email with what I need, and then with the due dates, and then we'll hop on calls every now and then to discuss high-level strategy. And I usually give full creative control to the people I work with or to the independent contractors I hire. And then if I get burned, which you find out pretty fast if the person has value or not, and then we usually let them go just as fast. I'm thinking of what I definitely need to be doing is creating a lot more structured systems and having other people kind of running the show as well, so I can free up some of my time. But that's where I'm at right now.
And do your clients contact you, or do they contact one of your employees or contractors?
I deal with all the clients myself, so all clients go through me and contact me. The reason I do that is because another reason I got into the service game was because I wanted to increase my network and establish pretty strong connections. And I find that with having the clients contact me, I'm able to build up a lot more relationships and also learn a lot about different industries. So in the future, say I want to enter software, or say I want to enter whatever, I can leverage certain relationships and also the insights I've learned from working closely with clients in those verticals to launch some of my own shit and use the marketing machine as a catalyst for growth.
All right, fantastic. Do you have any last words before we end this show?
In terms of last words, one thing that's been on my mind is a lot of people in the DMs have been asking me regarding which businesses they should pursue and which ones they should start and what I recommend. And I haven't had the chance to answer all those questions in my DMs yet, so I'll kind of answer it here. I think right now the main spiel of the state of the web is to launch product businesses because they have the most potential for scalability. But I find that when you're a beginner and you're just getting into the game, it necessarily doesn't make sense for you to launch a product business, because I personally think product businesses are the hardest to get right up front. Instead, what I recommend for newbies and beginners is to learn the necessary skill set that you need to eventually launch a product business, but at first use that skill set to create a service business. Because from my personal experience and from what I've seen from those around me, the fastest way to go from 0 to 100K isn't through a product business, it's through a service business. Or should I say, it's the easiest way to go from 0 to 100K, because you have recurring revenue each month. You don't have to start back from 0, and that's the main benefit. But also other benefits in the sense that you learn about a bunch of different industries and a bunch of different verticals that you wouldn't have learned about if you just pursued one product business in a specific niche. So I think for beginners, I'm a huge advocate of starting service businesses instead of product businesses. And the downside, of course, with service businesses is they're tougher to scale. Like, yeah, you can get from 0 to 100K with relative ease, but to go from 100K to the 7-figure mark becomes a lot more difficult, because you can't really scale your time. You'll either have to bring on new employees and deal with all those headaches. But I think as a beginner, you just need to be able to make money at first and validate this online lifestyle. So I think with the product business, I see a lot of people entering that product sphere, and then they get burned. They don't end up making a lot of money, and they're forced to go back to the 9-to-5 world. But I think a lot of the times that can be prevented if they started service businesses instead. because I find it's the quickest way to make money now and also into the future, as opposed to product businesses, which are a little more riskier. And once you've built up the skill set with your service business, by all means apply it to your product business, but don't try to, because the entire spiel of product business is you want to fucking wake up in the morning and you want to check your phone and you want to see like 10 notifications saying you got money. That's great. Right, that's fantastic. But most beginners honestly wouldn't reach that level because they don't have the skill set. So I think going down that route is kind of setting themselves up for failure. So I'm a huge advocate of starting up service businesses instead. And honestly, the service businesses don't even have to be online. Like if you learn direct response and you learn, even if you like, yeah, direct response, sales, marketing, just have those skill sets, you can make a killing in just like fucking anything, like from carpet cleaning to providing copywriting services or whatever. So I'm a huge advocate of getting into the game that way as opposed to launching a product business, because the skill set you will learn doing it that way, yes, it'll be slower, but the skill set, you're learning it the right way. You're not taking shortcuts, and you're actually building real, legit business skills that are transferable in a bunch of different industries and verticals, and I think that's the main benefit.
Ironically, because I'm the drop shipping guy now, but I actually completely agree. I always recommend freelance copywriting. I did it for like a few weeks, made maybe $500, and then my niche site started taking off, and because I was so new to freelancing, I was making like $20 an hour. Suddenly my niche sites are just offering so much more of a return, and they're more enjoyable, they're an asset. That's why I stopped. But I think to get started, you should absolutely do freelance copy. The whole time for money thing is stupid to me. I don't think you should frown on the time for money exchange unless you've got a more passive form that's making more.
Right, that is so true, because so many of the times, like, that guy, like, he would read, like, a book, like The Millionaire Fastlane, right? And then he would read a book like that, and then the takeaway he would have from a book like that would be like, hey, man, trading your time for money is a sucker's game. Like, that's bullshit. But then it's like, okay, then what are you doing, right? And then he's not doing shit. Like, he has $0. He's not earning anything. Instead, he's just, like, jacking off to these dreams of, like, one day being able to make a bunch of money through a product business or whatnot. But it's like the opportunity cost of you doing nothing is pretty major fucking cost. So instead of spewing out all these motivational sayings like you don't want to trade time for money, the guy that's actually in the trenches trading his time for money is actually building some real skills that are going to be transferable. And once he has those skills, he's going to kill you because you're not doing anything. You're just reading these books and fucking reciting these sayings. And yeah, that sounds good in theory. Like, trading time for your money is not ideal. Like, you don't want to do that, but you got to pay your dues up front somehow. And I think that's one of the main ways to do it.
It's absolutely true, and I fell into that category as well a bit when I was getting started. I've reread The Millionaire Fastlane, and I've reread Russell Brunson's .com Secrets, and both books, when I originally read them 3-4 years ago, they went completely over my head. They were not beneficial. Now when I read them, I think this is brilliant stuff. Why did nobody tell me this starting out? Of course they did, and it was just too early for me. At 16, I could not have started a product business. I could not have taught people dropshipping or whatever. I had to hone my skills as a copywriter, as a salesman, and now after 3 years, it's easy to me to see these opportunities, and I'm sure you're the same way.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because even like, I think one of the books that have had the most impact on me in terms of marketing and direct response and copywriting is Breakthrough Advertising. However, I picked that book up like when I first got into the game in like year one. Like, it was one of the first books I read, and that's like a stupid mistake, because that book is like so detailed and so strategic that everything I was learning, like, it was completely going over my head. And it wasn't a value to me at that time, but I revisited that book like every year since, and every year I'm able to see what Eugene Schwartz is actually talking about, and I can actually apply those strategies today. But picking that book up as a beginner actually set me back a little, because it kept me from taking action. Instead, I was like fucking trying to brainstorm all these like big ideas or whatnot that weren't necessarily needed. I could just have been making money up front. So I think like picking out which books you want to read, at least in the beginning, is a pretty important decision, because some books can go completely over your head and other books can send you down a completely different direction. So I think a lot more people should be mindful of what they're putting into their brains too.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a shame we stuck probably the most important beginner advice right at the end, but it is what it is. If any beginners are still listening at the 1 hour mark, then I'm sure they'll get a ton of value from this. I think we're going to end this here, so just before we end the recording, please tell people where they can find you, where they can get more of your content.
Sure. So mostly these days I'm basically just building out that brand on Twitter. On Twitter, my handle is Comedic Bizman, and I've also been writing a daily email. I missed a bunch of days because I missed a few days in the streak, but I think I've sent about like 100 daily emails in the last little bit. So I'm pretty active on daily emails as well. But Twitter is where we try posting majority of the dope shit, because I'm trying to grow that following up front.
All right. And what about your blog? I've sort of seen tweets of yours referencing a blog that documents your journey. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, so initially when I got into the entire entrepreneurship game, in 2011 I started up a blog, and it's just tejdosa.com. You can just go there to check it out. And it's basically like, I'm kind of embarrassed to like go back and read all my old articles, because like you can actually see the fucking transformation. Like even in the beginning, like misspelling simple ass things like then and then, dumbass fucking mistakes. Like, this is way before copywriting, right? But like even like sometimes like I'll go back and read some of my oldest posts in 2011 compared to now, and the transformation has been unbelievable for me personally. But yeah, that's where I try to document my entrepreneurial journey and try to give it as real and as honestly as I possibly can. Give you the intel about the lows, the highs, and everything in between. I think a lot of people in the social media generation tend to just broadcast the highs of entrepreneurship, but there's some serious lows, and I try to be as honest and upfront as possible, and the blog is where I tend to do a lot of that, as well as the daily emails.
That's brilliant. I mean, if it goes back to 2011, I'm sure there's some good stuff on there. I've also actually, although we said we'd end it, but I'll go on anyway. I've noticed myself that when I start a new business, I like to log it on a forum. I did this with dropshipping, and I did it when I was getting started 3 years ago. And that really helps me stay consistent. Always also got some feedback from some more experienced people, and it sounds like your blog perhaps has the same sort of function for you.
Exactly. It's funny, yeah, exactly, 100% agree. I think it kind of creates that accountability, and even just going back to Twitter, like another reason that I just thought of right now that I think I've jumped on Twitter for is to have an audience that kind of keeps you accountable, because I think the benefit of Twitter personally is I like providing a lot of practical content. However, in order for me to provide practical content instead of just generic like motivational or like self-help type of tweets, which actually perform a lot better. Right? But I personally, I don't know, I just like providing the practical content part and actually being in the trenches. But in order for me to do that, I actually have to be in the trenches myself and making shit happen while I'm not on Twitter. So another benefit of Twitter is it actually keeps me accountable in that sense, and actually helps in the sense that I'll take on greater risks, and even though they would fail, I know in the back of my mind it would create a killer thread. And I think one of my main philosophies has always kind of been just to live to collect stories. So do a bunch of different things, and it doesn't really matter if you succeed or if you fail, as long as at the end of the day you have a bunch of stories about your time that you spent on Earth or whatnot. So I think at the end of the day, like, the money ceases to matter after a certain period of time, and what really matters is what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. If you're building with those you admire and those you enjoy working with, and you're making progress on the things that are important to you. So Twitter is a great way for me to broadcast what I'm learning and what I'm discovering throughout my journey. It's kind of like the shorter version of the blog.
Absolutely, and your Twitter timeline is absolutely brilliant. I recommend anyone who is still listening at this point to check that out and just scroll through it. Honestly, I don't actually spend much time on Twitter myself, or at least not reading. I post a lot, but I don't read much content from other people. But I always think your timeline is actually really unique, and perhaps because you post some of that practical stuff and not just the insightful motivational quotes.
Yeah, I think I saw, it was you who kind of mentioned that out too. You were like, man, like I really want to be like tweeting out some practical shit, but like the masses don't like that. Like every time I tweet some general motivational shit, you guys eat it up and it becomes so much better than practical. I found that funny.
It's true, it's a trade-off between growing and putting out the stuff you really want to do.
Right, definitely.
Anyway, I think we'll end the show here. Tej, thank you very much for coming on. I think you've provided a lot of useful stuff, and anyone that has listened to this whole thing has definitely learnt a ton, and hopefully will be able to apply that to their own business. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, James. It's a pleasure.